Now, I want to spend the last 2 minutes just mentioning some things that I think Dr. Craig will talk about, having listened to him. Now, in fact, this you can't see very well. This is something he showed, and he may show again. He showed in Brisbane. It's something he likes to do, sort of like a syllogism, some logical argument which makes it appear necessary to have God. And he said, well, every existing thing that has an explanation has an explanation of its existence, okay? And then he said, if the universe has an explanation of its existence, that explanation is God. And the universe is existing, and therefore the explanation of the existence of the universe must be God. Boy, that's ironclad. Is it? Well, you know, the key point is here. You got to accept, when you have these syllogisms, you have to accept that this is true. And this is just a random statement that if the universe has an explanation, the explanation is God. Well, great. But that sort of assumes the answer before he asks the question. Syllogisms are very dangerous. Here's an example. If you make the wrong logical statement at the beginning, you can get wrong results. All mammals exhibit homosexual behavior. True. William Lane Craig is a mammal. True. Therefore, William Lane Craig exhibits homosexual behavior. Now, that isn't true. Well, as far as I know. But the point is, you can get that if you just blindly accept the assumptions at the beginning. And those assumptions are the ones I don't want you to blindly accept. Now, I'll probably zip through this because I think William is going to talk about the Kalam maybe and Islamic wisdom. Get it? Islamic wisdom. I had this exact same debate with an Islamic fundamentalist who used exactly the same arguments to prove the Quran was absolutely true that William will do in this case. But again, the arguments are not, the statements are none of which are true. And I won't go through them because we'll have a chance to talk about them. But none of those statements are true in modern physics. And therefore, the argument is irrelevant. Now, it is true that the Bible said the universe had a beginning well before science did. Great. But so did everything else. So did the Norse creation myths and the Rig Veda. And the Bible got it wrong. They do the creation in the wrong order. So in fact, as St. Augustine would remind, I'm sure, Dr. Craig, the Bible isn't a scientific document. And therefore, to argue that it got it right, well, you know, every creation myth indicated there was a creation. It's a natural thing. And I won't even go into Lemaitre. I'm going to try and end in 1 minute with another statement that Dr. Craig has made. Because for Dr. Craig, the beginning of the universe is very important. Because if it had a beginning, he believes it must have come from God. And he quotes a theorem due to a few friends of mine that basically says the universe, if it's expanding now as we measure it, had to have a beginning. And he argues that that's irreconcilable with anything else. And as we argued in Brisbane, I said that's not true. And he said, no, Alex Vilenkin, one of the authors, has recently shown it's true. So I wrote Alex, who's a good friend of mine. And he just emailed me. And he said, only theorem is only as good as its assumption. There's a loophole for contraction, product expansion, and there's no such thing as absolute certainty in science. Note, for example, the BGV theorem uses the classical picture of space-time. In the case of quantum mechanics, it's out the window. And at the beginning of the universe, that's when quantum mechanics matters. So, the last thing that is often used is the question of fine-tuning. The universe appears to be fine-tuned for life. Well, that's an old argument. You should have heard it before. Life appeared to be fine-tuned for life. Every form of life appeared to be fine-tuned for the environment in which it lived, and that's why God existed. But we now know that's not the case, because Darwin told us, you know what? Natural selection produces that kind of possibility in the form of life. Well, if there are many different universes, we would be amazed to find ourselves living in a universe in which we couldn't live. That would be worth having a discussion on stage about. Okay? So the fact that if there are many different universes, the fact that we happen to be fine-tuned to the universe that we live in is not too surprising. But in fact, it's worse. Because just like evolution, the fine-tuning is miserable. I get backaches because I'm not designed to sit at a computer. And in fact, the fine-tuning could be much better than it is. Life could be much more prevalent in the universe. So this fine-tuning argument is garbage. And I think I will conclude with that and just say what we mean by something and nothing has completely changed. And that's the important point. And that change is not a bad thing. It's called learning.